again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Thursday night and it is myself and Supermac tonight. No Gibbo, he's got something on tonight, but don't fear, he will be back next week to give us his own views on Newcastle United. But Malcom, good evening.
Good evening, Steve. Hi, how are you?
Good, mate. Yes, had my first jab, as you know, so no second heads grown yet or anything. I'm okay. I'm not feeling as tired or woozy as I did last Thursday night, but all good. I've survived. So.
Right. Well, I had my second jab yesterday.
Yes.
So yeah, and I've not got anything growing out of places it shouldn't be.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, we're both surviving, mate, and hopefully we'll be back to see each other in the flesh before the end of the season. It would be nice to think if that game happens where the fans are allowed in and you get a chance to go up and sit in the press box with Gibbo. We might, you never know, get a talking done at a pub somewhere, which would be nice after a year off.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yes, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It certainly looks as if they're going to try and do one game for every club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that would be fantastic. Well, hopefully, keep your fingers crossed. We'll keep you updated as well, everybody out there, on whether we do get back to do that before the end of the season. But let's talk a little bit about last weekend's game, Mal, Newcastle against Liverpool. I was quite confident we'd get something, and we did. We got a 1-1 draw. Should we have had 3 points, Mal?
Yeah. What? Yes. Simple answer to that, yes. With what happened in the dying minutes, but I suppose then, if you were predicting a win, Steve, that you knew that the Liverpool forwards were going to miss about 15 shots.
Yeah,
I've never seen such a catalogue of errors from a top half side. I really haven't. They were absolutely shocking, and all of that followed a fantastic goal that Liverpool kicked off with. Poor old Matt Ritchie, he just completely lost the fella all in a fraction of a second. It was an absolute beauty, a peach from Salah. Absolutely fabulous. I could watch it over and over again. And Newcastle, they sort of hung on in, but Liverpool, very uncharacteristic for a top six side to be so lax in the last 10 minutes when they're hanging on to a 1-0 victory, a 1-0 lead, and so Newcastle, quite rightly, they started to put some pressure on. And then it came to the Wilson incident where the ball hit him on his arm, which was in front of his body, tight to his body. And in the end, VAR disallowed it. I was absolutely seething and fuming. And if any of these people making the silly rules were actually in front of me, I would have hit them. I really would, because they are ruining the game. Wilson's arm was in front of his body when the ball struck him, and the ball, it was somebody trying to clear it. So if his arm hadn't been there, it would have hit his body and gone in to the goal as it had off his arm. It wouldn't have been any different whatsoever. If his arm was out, away from his body, okay, maybe that's a free kick. But this one wasn't. His arm was very much there in front of his body, and I cannot see how on earth they cannot give a goal on that, and yet there were two incidents that took place over the same weekend. The first one was Azpilicueta playing for Chelsea, and he was in his defensive area, and his arm was to the side of his body, and a shot was struck. It hit his arm and rebounded out. They went to VAR, and they decided that it wasn't a penalty. Then later, I think it was later, that the Manchester United game took place, and an identical situation to Azpilicueta took place by a Manchester United defender, and again VAR said no penalty. What is the difference? Why is there a difference between the defensive penalty area and the attacking penalty area? Because all three incidents were absolutely identical, where arms were against the body and the ball struck and rebounded. And it seems that they have decided that in the defensive area, it's not handball, but in the attacking area, it is handball. Where's the logic in that? Do you know, these people, they are who are coming up with all of this, who are in charge of VAR, they are making it a jobs for the boys situation. An absolute jobs for the boys. Let's keep changing the rules so that we can scrap one, rewrite, scrap one, rewrite. We can do it all the time, and we'll keep making jobs for ourselves. I think it's absolutely appalling. But the ridiculous thing is what the commentator said, and I didn't realize this, I'm sure that people watching probably did, that with the Wilson incident, it has already been decided that that will change. And so next season, it won't be handball. Well, isn't that the greatest admittance of utter failure, of total guilt of getting it wrong? And I am becoming so concerned for the game because the people that they're allowing in are looking after themselves and not the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It is. I'd agree with you, Mal. I'm sure people in the chat will have a comment to make about that. Please put your comments in. We will be able to take a few questions tonight with John not being on. We don't have to share the airwaves with John today. So feel free to get some questions in for Malcolm if you want. And there can be anything with regards to Newcastle current day or Malcolm's career. We don't often get a chance to do that. So Mad Mark says, did you have a specific pre-match meal that you always requested before each game, Malcolm, that you played in, which allowed you to perform at the levels that you did for both club and country? Interesting question. Did you have a pre-match meal?
Yes. Now, and this was a time when things were rapidly changing. When I was playing for Fulham as an 18-year-old, we were served fillet steak 3 hours before a game. Steak is the worst thing. It's heavy. It takes about 27 hours to digest. And it's not really offering you energy or anything like that. And I always remember Bill Shankly when his players protested about getting fillet steaks because it was universal in football at the time. And the Liverpool players were complaining and saying, look, that there are much healthier options to fillet steak. And Bill Shankly's response was, if it was good enough for me when I was playing, it's good enough for you now. You know, and so many views on the game were all around at the time, old-fashioned views, and I used to sit and talk at lunchtimes in the Milkmaid which was opposite City Stylish in Newcastle with Frank Clark. And we used to discuss what was the right type of food to eat, say on the night before a game. What was the right thing to have for breakfast of a match day? What was the right thing to have at lunch? And what we came down to was, because what we were looking for was a large input of salt, because with sweating profusely over the 90 minutes of a game, you need to replace the salt. So if you've already got it inside of yourself, that's immediate replacement. And also, what gives you the greatest energy? And what we came down to was that before a game, Frank and we would have a large bowl of cornflakes. There's a lot of salt in cornflakes. A large bowl of cornflakes with peach juice, tinned peach juice, absolutely full of the energy that the body quickly absorbed, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was poof, absolute powering through our bodies. And so that's what I had, and I stuck with that throughout my career. Cornflakes and peach juice. Now and again, I luxuriated myself and put a slice of peach in as well.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. That's how Malcom scored all those goals. Any young budding strikers, take note. Tom Dixon says, Malcom, should Lejeune be back in Newcastle's first team next season? Obviously, he's been out on a season-long loan.
Well, he has, yes. I can't even look far enough ahead for next season. We don't know who's going to be owner. We don't know who's going to be manager. We don't know, and if there is a new owner and a new manager, there's going to be massive change. And Lejeune's getting on a bit now, isn't he? Any ideas how old he is? About 33.
I'll have to double check that, Mal, while you're talking.
Yeah, I think he's about 33. So.
Born in 1991, Mal. So around
30.
30.
So he's 30. Mm-hmm. All right, so he's 30. Okay, well, yeah, he's got a bit of time still in himself, but yeah, certainly I think he would have a chance of getting into the side. But the question is, why? If you're looking for him to play next season, why has he been out on loan all this season?
Yeah.
Is there something the club know that hasn't been made public to all of us? That he is a good centre half, yes, but if I remember rightly, he had quite an injury, didn't he, at one stage? So it's a difficult one. And I really think that we've got to keep an open mind as to ownership, because if the ownership stays the same, there'll be little to no change. If the ownership changes, there is going to be massive change, and very quickly, I would imagine.
Yep. Okay. Richard Naylor says, question to Supermac, have you ever thought to dive to gain an advantage? I'm thinking about the game at Nottingham where a player climbed all over you. So, I mean, is there has there ever been a time when you tried to do that, Mal, or were you always more determined to get through, beat the defender and score the goal?
The latter. Absolutely the latter. I always had an absolute belief in myself and my strength, that I could free myself from whatever encumbrance an opponent would throw upon me, and that I could get clear with my pace and get a strike on goal. I don't think he means Nottingham Forest. I've got a feeling he's looking at the Burnley game, which was the semi-final of the FA Cup at Hillsborough, and the big centre half of Burnley jumped on my back, and he tried to pull me down, and in all fairness, it was a referee from Leicester. He was a school teacher, and the easy thing for him to do was blow his whistle, but he didn't. He let the game go on, and finally, I got rid of the body that had been on my back. Colin Waldron had sort of slid down until he had let go of me, but I was off balance and I hit a shot, but it came back to me off of the goalkeeper Stevenson. And I controlled it with my right foot, went to the right and side-footed it past the goalkeeper into the net. And I said to the referee afterwards, with a foul going on over sort of like 30-odd yards, the easy thing for you to do was blow your whistle, but you didn't. Why not? And he said, as a referee, he said, I think it's my responsibility to know and understand the players that I'm refereeing. He said, and I just fancied that you could stay on your feet and continue and get a shot in. He said, so I'll let you go. And I said, well, thank you very much. Because he could have taken dreadful criticism if finally I was sort of pulled down or whatever. But no, it was a great decision on his part.
Yeah, okay. Mike Jen says, Malcom, do you rate Tammy Abraham of Chelsea?
Yeah, I rate Tammy. But I suppose the question is being asked because Chelsea are making him available, and so with the question is being asked with a view to Newcastle signing. I think there'll be more attractive proposals put to the player from other clubs than Newcastle could put forward right now. And at the same time, there is no way, whilst Mike Ashley remains the owner, that he is going to consider paying £40 million for a player. That's not going to be the summer budget, for heaven's sake. It's going to be a lot less than that if Mike Ashley is to remain as the owner.
Okay, Keith says it's the first of the Supermac derbies in the next month, of course. Newcastle play Arsenal at the weekend. What does Malcom think of the Spotify takeover of Arsenal speculation?
I think it would be a very exciting one, particularly, and I think it's a clever move by Eck of Spotify. Excuse me. Oh. That's the sunshine coming.
Yeah. Don't criticise the sunshine.
Yeah, no, I'm not criticising at all. No. Eck, he's got these three players, ex-Arsenal heroes, and I think that they're going to add some weight and strength to all of this. And I think that he's a guy who would really want to be at the front in creating a successful side and chasing success at the Emirates. And I don't think that that's there at the moment. I really don't. Kroenke is an American. Over in America, they see sport in an entirely different way. And I don't think it suits over here in this country, particularly in football. Wouldn't suit in rugby, I don't think. We have pyramids. They don't have that in the States. It's one league, and there's no fear of relegation really from it whatsoever. And so they don't have that ongoing competition and the change of competition that we have over here. And yes, I think the the buyout that Eck is offering would be an absolutely great one for Arsenal. I really do. And I think he's a young man who would really want to get into it, and he's got those three guys saying, "Come on, show me the way to do it." I think it would be absolutely brilliant.
Will King says, Malcom, disregarding the financial rewards, would you prefer to be playing now or when you did in the 70s?
I enjoyed the football of the 70s. It was rough, it was tough, but it was great fun. I think, well, the game changes. It changes every decade, and here we are, sort of 5 decades later from me joining Newcastle, and the game it's reached almost the point of perfection. The pitches are perfect, the kit's all perfect. The refereeing is trying to be perfect, but in actual fact, he's making a right cock up with VAR. And so they're looking for perfection all the way through. And sometimes perfection can just be a little bit too much. So I enjoyed it back then, but of course, when you think that if I were to do these days what I achieved in my time in the first division back then in the 70s, in a decade, I'd be walking away from the game with £100 million plus in the bank. That you can't ignore that. You really can't ignore it.
No, you can't.
And I must tell you, Steve, sorry, I must tell you that for my first few years playing in the first division with Newcastle and a bit going into Arsenal, I was paying 82.5% tax.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It didn't matter how well you negotiated your contract, and I was a good negotiator. The taxman would come along and just punish you even more for your good negotiating.
Yep, the taxman always gets his amount. That's for certain. Joe Walker, good evening, mate. He says, how do we fix the state of the game, Mal? Should ex-players and managers work for VAR?
Yes, I think so. There are a lot of players around who are hugely intelligent, understand the game implicitly, can look forward to where it's going and how it should get there. For one, Frank Clark, I know he's somewhat involved with Nottingham Forest, but Frank Clark would be a great person to put in charge of the VAR situation. He knows and understands the game, and would sensibly and intelligently apply it so that it fits the game, it suits the game, and allows the game to suit it, so that everybody benefits by it. All that's happening at the moment is that nobody's really benefiting other than the people who are running it. And it's just causing so much controversy. In the right hands, it could be a marvelous bit of equipment. But when people are making the rules who don't really totally understand the game of football and how it's played, and I get the feeling that also what they don't understand is the fairness that you need to have in football, that impartiality, and VAR has to be completely fair, completely impartial. And I go back to my very first point that I made this evening, which is you cannot have one handball rule in the defensive area and a totally different rule in the attacking area. That's absolute madness. Madness. The same must apply. You know, one of the things that really annoys me is that referees they'll give a handball or a foul outside of the area, but when the identical thing happens in the area, they don't give it because it'd be a penalty instead of a free kick. But they should give it. If it's a foul outside, it's a foul inside. And we have to apply that absolute utter fairness right the way across the game, right the way across the whole of every pitch, and right across all of the players that are playing it on an equal basis, and make it simple for the referee to make use of.
Yep. Okay. Good stuff. Paul Oxley says, Malcom, what do you think of the impact of Asam since he returned? Does he look like he's putting himself in the shop window, or do you think he's playing for the cause now?
No, what I think with him is he came to the club, and when he first started playing, his success for him was how many players could he beat? I think now that he's realised it's not the players you beat, it's the goals you score. It's the goals you make. That's what really counts. And so I think he's now become goal aware. And he looks so much better for that. He's so much more effective. Plus, other players are wanting to get there and play with him, and so I think he's enjoying his game, particularly now he's back in after injury. Being out injured is always an absolute footballer's curse. What I hope is that the takeover happens, or if it is going to happen, that it happens quickly enough for the club to explain to the players the changes that are going to happen and how it's going to happen, and that players like St. Maximin, like Wilson, are happy to stay. That's a key to it. You want players who are good enough but are happy to stay and be there at the same time and do the right job.
Yeah, okay, that's the key. Paolo says, question for Supermac. There's a Newcastle player before the Premier League. Is there a Newcastle player before the Premier League that you think should be in the Hall of Fame? Alan Shearer, of course, inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame, but just the Hall of Fame, I suppose, for the top level, Mal. I mean, a lot of fans, especially those who tune in on Thursday nights, would say you should be in there for what you did. I mean, 5 goals for England against Cyprus, and played for a vast array of clubs, and great at Newcastle. But is there another player that stands out? Doesn't necessarily have to be a Newcastle player, of course. It could be somebody you've played or managed.
Yeah, because you see, the question there is, there's a Newcastle player before the Premier League. Oh, before the Premier League. I see what he's saying.
Yeah. I think there's a common. It's a common theme, isn't it? That know, people tend to almost forget it, that there was football before then. It's always been one of my bugbears. There was football before the Premier League, and
Absolutely.
They talk about goal scoring records and this and that and the other. But Jimmy Greaves was a top striker. Yet he's almost forgotten about when you talk about who the Premier League's top scorer is. But
sure.
Greaves had a fantastic record, didn't he?
Greavesy, yeah. Do you know I played with him?
Yeah. Tell the viewers though. I don't think that you've told this story on yet.
Well, I used to play quite a lot with Jimmy Greaves, but it wasn't on a football pitch. He was a terrific wicket keeper, and we used to play in the same side. And often he would be the wicket keeper, and I'd be the second or third slip. And so we used to be chatting away while the batsman was trying to concentrate on the bowler steaming down on him. He was great company, Greavesy, absolute great company, and a funny lad. So without shadow of doubt, him, because he was without doubt the best post-war goal scorer there has been in this country, without any shadow of doubt. You can throw any name at me at all, and I will just keep saying no. Greavesy was the best. I must tell you, when I was 14, and my sports master at the school I was at in London, he said to me, right, he said, it looks like you're starting to go forward in your game of football, because I'd sort of I'd always played in whatever position I was needed. I could be centre half one week, midfield the next, centre forward the following week. Wherever I was needed, I would go and play. And he said, I think you're graduating towards becoming a centre forward. He said, and with your pace, he said, I think you need to start to hone and refine your game a bit. And I said, okay. He said, on Wednesday of next week, what I want you to do is go to White Hart Lane and go to the Tottenham League match. He said, and for 90 minutes, I don't want you to watch anything other than Jimmy Greaves. Just focus on Jimmy Greaves. Wherever the ball goes, just watch Jimmy Greaves for 90 minutes, see what he does, how he does it, work out why he makes certain decisions at certain times. So I went to this game, and Jimmy Greaves had 3 touches. Spurs won 2-0. Greaves scored both. And he had 3 touches in the game. He was, and the 2 goals that he scored were utterly incredible. And the thing that I remember most about him was, and this was sort of in and around the opposing penalty area, that when defenders were sort of rushing about in the area, he stood still. But as soon as there's that moment where, well, everybody goes on their heels, Greavesy went, and he was away. And he would make a run. And if you could play the ball into him at that moment, he was just totally unstoppable. And his finishing was absolutely sublime. And he was left-footed, but he could score the odd one with his right. And but it was that movement that he made as people were going on their heels, as the direction had changed or whatever. And I found it quite fascinating. And of course, this wasn't watching a football match. This was watching a genius at work. And it taught me a huge amount, not just as a player, but it taught me how to watch an individual footballer as well. And it certainly helped me when I was managing. You know, when I go and watch a player, instead of getting sort of drawn into the game and watching the game, I would just watch the player, see what he does, how does he do it, and is he what we need? And it was a great piece of advice by my sports master. His name was Alford. He was my history teacher and sports teacher as well. And I really appreciated that. It stood me in good stead, did that.
Okay, great stuff. Charlie says, Malcom, do you think Andy Carroll is now surplus to requirements? And out of all the realistic transfer targets, who would you like to see at the club? I think it's a bit early for transfer targets. Malcolm's already mentioned there as well that we're not sure which ballpark we're going to be playing in, whether we're in the Mike Ashley ballpark or a new owner ballpark. But you can answer the question about Andy Carroll. Is it time to let him go?
If I didn't know better, I would have thought they'd let him go anyway, because I really don't understand what Steve Bruce has been doing with Andy Carroll. That if he wanted to punish him, he couldn't do a better job than what he's been doing to Andy over the past 4 or 5 months. You know, leaving him sitting on the bench. There's been times when Newcastle have been desperate for a big man out in the park, and yet he'll bring on anybody other than Andy Carroll. No, we've got 2 minutes to go. Andy, get yourself changed. You know, that's no way to treat a fella of his age, because I find it quite disrespectful what Steve Bruce has done, because Andy Carroll, we know his history. That he's had a few injuries. He can be injury prone at times, and so if he's going to go on, you need to give him plenty of time to get warmed up at his age, plenty of time. And Steve Bruce hasn't been doing that, and I find it disrespectful. I really do, and I think that Andy Carroll could have been used more, particularly when Wilson was out injured. Wilson missed about 9-10 games. Andy Carroll could have been used in that time, and apart from anything, I'll tell you what, if he wasn't going to be playing centre forward, he could have been playing centre half, because he...
Oh, there goes Malcom. So we have a 5-minute break. Now, many of you who watch on a regular basis will know that Malcom does go off every now and then because of his internet connection. So we had an agreement. I wouldn't do the sponsor shout out until his internet froze. The plan was, of course, that if he went off halfway through the show, I would read out the sponsors' things, and Malcom would come back. If it happened at 5 to 7, we would have just finished the show, but you're lucky in the sense that it's gone off early. So we'll have to give Malcom about 5 minutes, I think, to pull things round and to get himself sorted. And hopefully he will be back anyway. But that was quite a sudden one, wasn't it, compared to what we normally see with Malcom? He normally goes out on a slow process. But that's Malcom away. He will be back in 5 minutes. So bear with us, and I give a big shout out, as always, to our sponsors. Big shout out to Spider VPN. That's for your internet security. A great bunch of lads. They have been with us not only for this month, but also the 2 months previous to that, 3 months now. Big shout out to the lads. I know they're going to come on board with some of our events as well. So big thank you to you guys. Also a big shout out to Arcot Interiors. They've come on board for this month, and they are kitchens. That's what you want to have a look at there. You want to get onto their website, which is www.arcotinteriors.com. Give them a ring at 0191 265 8663, or email them at inquiries@arcot.org.uk for all your kitchen needs. And also a big shout out to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend and Newcastle, and to John at Jab Signature, who makes all of our flyers. And if you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please have a look at that Newcastle Legends badge in the bottom right-hand corner. If you roll over that, it will give you the option to subscribe to the channel. And that's it. It's free. Please subscribe. Every subscription helps. We've had over 300 new subscribers this week. We're quickly approaching 40,000 subscribers, which is phenomenal considering the channel in its current format has only been up and running for 12 months. Was previously just videos and stuff uploaded onto here, but a phenomenal amount of people have subscribed over the 12 months, over the lockdown, and a big thank you to you. It'd be great if you could click the share button, share it to Twitter, share it to Facebook or whatever you're connected to, and just ask people to join. Share it to Newcastle groups on other social media, Facebooks, etc. And if you can share it to them and just tell people what we're doing here, and they might want to come and have a look. With it being me, you might get a bit of abuse, you never know, but it's worth doing anyway. Please do it. Even if you just tweet it, get people to come on and subscribe to the channel. Set a reminder as well for your favourite shows. It's a little thing that you can do, but if you like to watch this show and maybe Liam's and the Three Amigos, then just set a reminder for each show, and you'll get a little email notification just to let you know that the show is going to be going live. Hit the like button, of course. That is very important. Over 360 people watching at the moment. But if you hit the little thumb under the video, that likes it. And believe it or not, that does us a massive, massive favour. Again, it's free. You won't get hit with any emails or anything, but just hit the little thumb. That is a big, big help to us as far as NUFC matters is concerned. Just running through what we've got coming up as well over the next few days. Three Amigos, of course, our most popular show on the channel. Me, Steve Hasty, Neil Mitchell and Keith Patterson will be together again from 5:30 onwards tomorrow night. It's always 2 hours on a Friday, always plenty to talk about. John loves to have a bit of a play around with the Flyers. Grange Hill. Another blast from our past, that one. And fine head of hair there that I've got at the front as Tucker Jenkins. But big thank you to John for that. On Saturday, we will have the return of Mick Lowes. Mick, you will remember, of course, from his commentary days covering Newcastle United. He's been a big favourite of yours on the channel, and he's been coming on every few weeks to give his views on Newcastle United. And I've got to be honest, a turnaround in fortune with Newcastle United since Mick started coming on the shows. In fact, I think we were looking at relegation in the face before Mick made his first appearance. But since then, these sporadic appearances have led to Newcastle's revival. So I'm putting Mick Lowes, that down to Mick Lowes rather than Steve Bruce and the players. Well done, Mick. And of course, on Sunday, we have the Malcom McDonald derby, Newcastle United versus Arsenal. We will be covering that in our own imitable style. Match Day Live will be starting at the 1:30 mark for a 2 o'clock kickoff. And we will be talking you through the game. We've enjoyed it. It's been fun. It's been great to do. We've had a lot of people watching it. I think it was something like 5,500, 6,000 people tuned into our coverage of last week's game against Liverpool. Phenomenal numbers. And again, thank you. We never take that for granted. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving us support. And we're just glad that what we do is received as well by you guys. We also do T-shirts, as you know, for the food bank. Something we've been doing over the last God knows how many months, 7 or 8 months now, I think it is. And we put a T-shirt up each week. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk. He comes up with various designs, and they're one-off T-shirts. And this one, Mystic Mag, which of course is Keith from NCSL, hashtag staying up, is, believe it or not, up at £350 now. And all of that money, £350, will be going to the food bank. We'll finish that tomorrow night. It is pinned to my Twitter at Steve Wraith, which you can see just in front of you there. And if you want to bid for that, all £350 will go to the food bank. So great gesture that. I think it's John who's the current high bigger. Well done to you, mate. And hopefully, hopefully you get what you want, mate. It's a great T-shirt. So big thank you to you. If you haven't tuned into any of the other shows this week, don't forget Monday night we had Ladies' Night. I was joined by Holly and Lily, and we looked back over the games. You can find that under Ladies' Night playlists. On Tuesday, we were joined by Liam Kennedy, our most watched show this week so far. Liam was talking predominantly about the takeover and his views on it. So it is well worth a watch. You can find that in the Liam Kennedy playlist. And then Wednesday night, last night, of course, the Retro Squad, which is myself, George Mitchell, Neil Mitchell, Steve Hasty, Steve Wilkinson and Stu Penman. We got together and talked about Newcastle United against Hull City. We had memories of various games that Newcastle had played. Not that many, it has to be said. We give you the chance to pick the opponents that you want us to cover. We covered Hull City last night. It was a good laugh. Some good recollections, some good stories. Some of them stories that you'll hear on these programs are not always football related, it has to be said. And then on top of that, we always do celebrity fans that support Hull City, and we also do players that played for both clubs. And then the lads have a task right at the end of the show where they have to pick their 11 from the coaches, managers, players that have played for both teams. So it's always interesting, well worth a watch, but that is called the Retro Show. Big thanks to you for all listening to me warble on, and I will now bring in Mal, who has got his internet sorted. And good job we planned that, Mal.
Yes, we did indeed. I don't know about getting the internet started. I think it's more my computer.
No,
it's the second time it's happened today, so it's not just doing football matters.
No worries, mate. Mike Gent says, what's your thoughts on the report that the so-called Big Six had a heads up before the other 14 clubs when it came to the meetings at the Premier League? I mean, this has been rumbling on for the last couple of weeks, but yeah, it seems to be a lot of underhand stuff being going on at the Premier League, which I think will all be revealed in due course.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will, Steve. There has been an awful lot of underhand stuff. I think in the very centre of it are Americans. And they are wanting to do it in the American way. The American way, I said earlier this evening, will not suit the game of a European league at all. It just will not. They want a closed shop. They don't want relegation and promotion and all of that. And you know, Newcastle have been involved in the relegation issue. Can you imagine the last half of the season where you're in the bottom six and you're not going to get relegated? There's no competition, is there? What are you playing for? What on earth are you playing for? If you're not going to get relegated and you can't win, you can't get up the top to win anything or get into Europe, it's a waste of a season. But what we've got is a battle at the top, a battle at the bottom, and the thing, it keeps everybody fascinated right the way through until the last match day of the season. So I think maybe we should bar Americans. That's the way to do it.
I'm not sure whether that's politically correct, but maybe barring Americans from running football clubs. Yeah, I would agree. Mike Stewart says, Malcom, do you think Joe Linton has improved significantly enough to be kept on for next season? His last 4 or 5 appearances have been a bit better.
Have they? No, he just isn't good enough for this level. About 2 months ago, because I was really aware of how many times he was losing possession, and so I thought I'm going to check it out, and so I did a count through the whole of one game. He lost the ball 2 out of every 3 times he got the ball. If a player at North Shields was losing it 2 out of every 3 times he got the ball, he wouldn't be in the club. I can assure you of that. He would not be in the club. It's not good enough. And for him to be at the Premiership level people should be asked some very serious questions as to how he got there in the first place. The guy just isn't good enough. The thing is, he knows he's not. You know, okay, so he nicked a goal from a yard out. For heaven's sake. And he reacted as if he had scored 15 in the season. The guy isn't good enough for this level. I'm not sure he would be good enough in the Championship, to be honest. And I think that, you know, and then would North Shields take him? I doubt it very much. He loses the ball too much.
Okay, there's your answer. Paul Oxley says, staying on the striker theme, would you bring Wilson in on Sunday and take Joe Linton out then? Surely it's got to happen now.
Absolutely. Joe Linton is not a goal scorer. And against Arsenal, you need to have a bit of pace. Arsenal are very athletic. They're all very quick, and you need to be able to match that. And certainly, I would play Wilson. You can't play somebody as naive as Joe Linton against a side like Arsenal. Albeit Arsenal, they're not performing well, but they're not daft, and they would see Joe Linton as a weak link in the side, and play on that, and look for other weak links as well. Fulham went to Arsenal, you know, and we have to be very careful still. Even though there's a lot of points between Newcastle and Fulham now. Fulham went to Liverpool, 1-1-0. They went to Arsenal and were winning 1-0 until I think it was the 5th or the 7th minute of added time, and Arsenal nicked one. And so if Fulham can do that to Arsenal, then come on, Newcastle, you can do the same. And you know, you've got to be tight at the back and not have this nonsense that we saw against Liverpool, of giving players so much time and space in the penalty area, and it was only the very poor finishing from Liverpool that they hadn't racked up double figures by half time, you know, and in the end Newcastle ironically could have won the game if there'd been decent rules applied to the game and decent refereeing to go with it. You know, so I would like to see Newcastle playing a 4-4-2. This 3 at the back, which always finishes up as 5 at the back, and what you're doing is you're losing by doing it that way. You're losing the attacking abilities and skills of the 2 wide men, and I just think it's a real utter waste. And so what you've got are wide men being pulled back to play as defenders. Richie isn't a defender, not a defender to save his life, and yet he's willing, because he'll always give everything. And if you ask him to do something, he'll give it his all. But he isn't a defender, and so good managers don't ask players to do something they're not good at. You know, and he's being asked all the time, and so's the lad on the other side.
We've got time for a couple more questions before we get Malcolm's prediction on the match of the weekend. Tim Cairn says, I remember Malcolm's boutique fondly as I worked at the Swallow. When you moved to Arsenal, didn't you have a shop down south? Did you have a shop down south, Mark?
No, I didn't.
There you go. Simple answer to that one. Mark says, question for Malcom. I know you're not a fan of Hayden. Me neither. We haven't really missed him. We're more on the front foot in games. Do you think we're better off without him? Malcolm's internet is frozen again. Oh dear. It's not his night tonight. It is not his night. Unfortunately, that means we're going to lose Mal and we're not going to get his prediction. He's had a nightmare by all accounts tonight. And from our perspective, it doesn't really seem fair to wait around. So we're going to have to cut the show short tonight. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Not great. Malcom is keen to get his internet fixed as well. So anyone out there can help. Malcom, maybe drop him a message on Twitter and he might be able to sort that out. It is worse than Liam Kennedy, says Tom Dixon. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I am back tomorrow night, as I said, with the lads for the Three Amigos. Back at 5:30 tomorrow night. It'll be myself, Neil Mitchell, Steve Hasty and Keith from NCSL. Look forward to seeing you all then. Take care, have a good night, and I'm going on to another podcast now. If you're a bit bored and you've got nothing to do and you want to hear me witter on, it's called What a Hit, Son. And if you are on Twitter, if you look for What a Hit, Son, it'll be on there. But what I'm actually going to do, you bear with us, I will stick it in the link now. There we go. I'll stick it in the comments. Here you go. So, if you have a look on there, if you're on the comments section, you should be able to find me on there. Now, I think it's going live. I've stuck the YouTube link in. There you go. You'll be able to catch me on there. I've got no idea what I'm going to be asked about, no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to go on. So, have a good night, guys, and I will see you tomorrow night with the lads. Take care.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the